The secretary stepped from the waterfall thinking she was alone until the millionaire boss saw her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. Lily Harper had never planned to be here, standing on a narrow trail carved into the side of a mountain reserve just outside Aspen, Colorado, the air thin and cool, the sound of rushing water growing louder with every careful step. The company retreat was supposed to be structured, predictable, full of meetings in lodge rooms with coffee stations and polite applause. That was Lily's comfort zone. Schedules, emails, clean margins. As executive secretary to Ethan Caldwell, the billionaire founder and chief executive officer of Caldwell Group, she lived by precision. She arrived early, left late, remembered everything so others did not have to. But an hour ago, after a long morning of logistics and quiet problem-solving, she had followed a handwritten sign pointing toward a waterfall overlook, telling herself she deserved 10 minutes to breathe. The trail opened suddenly, and there it was, a wide curtain of water spilling over dark stone, mist rising like a veil, sunlight breaking into soft prisms. Lily stopped. No voices, no footsteps, just water and wind. She checked her phone. No signal. She smiled despite herself. The blazer she wore for meetings felt heavy now, out of place against the spray, so she set it carefully on a smooth rock beside her tote, the one she always kept perfectly organized. The roar of the falls swallowed the world, and for the first time since she could remember, Lily felt unseen. She stepped closer, careful of the slick stones, letting the cool mist settle on her skin, the stress in her shoulders loosening as she focused on her breath, counting the seconds like she did before difficult meetings. She told herself this was still who she was, still Lily Harper, not the title on her badge, not the quiet presence in boardrooms. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening, believing she was alone. She did not hear the faint crunch of gravel behind her, or the pause of footsteps at the edge of the trail, or the man who had come looking for the same silence after a call that refused to give him answers. Ethan Caldwell had left the lodge with his jacket unzipped and his phone face down, drawn by the sound of water because it promised honesty. He stopped short when he saw her, not because of surprise alone, but because the woman standing there did not match the version of Lily he knew. She was not seated behind a desk with a notepad ready, not anticipating his needs before he spoke. She was simply present, steady, human, framed by falling water and light. Ethan did what he rarely did. He did not interrupt. He did not announce himself. He stood still, aware that a line existed in moments like these, a line between respect and intrusion, between seeing and taking. Lily sensed something then, a shift in the air, and turned, her breath catching not in fear but in sudden awareness. Their eyes met across the mist. No words, just the understanding that something ordinary had changed. The waterfall kept falling, the retreat schedule kept waiting, and somewhere between the sound of water and the space between them, the story truly began. Lily did not run. That surprised her more than anything else. In her head, the correct response was obvious. Apologize, retrieve her blazer, retreat to professionalism. But her feet stayed planted as the mist cooled her face, and the reality of who stood a few yards away settled into her chest. Ethan Caldwell looked different here, without the conference room walls or the polished table between them. Taller somehow, quieter. He cleared his throat once, then stopped himself, as if words might fracture something fragile. Lily reached for her blazer, slipping it on with careful movements, not rushed, not dramatic, just enough to remind herself where she belonged. I did not realize anyone else was out here, she said, her voice steady, grateful it did not betray the quickened rhythm beneath. Ethan nodded, eyes returning briefly to the waterfall before meeting hers again. Neither did I, he replied. No apology followed. No command. That alone unsettled her. He stepped back, giving space, a small courtesy that did not go unnoticed. For a moment, they stood listening to the water, two people bound by a silence that felt heavier than conversation. Then Ethan spoke again, softer. The trail sign is misleading. It makes this place feel private. Lily almost smiled. Almost. It does, she agreed, and then added, because it was true. I only meant to take a few minutes. He glanced at his watch, then shook his head slightly. So did I. The simplicity of that statement stayed with her as they walked back along the trail together, not side by side, but not far apart either, the distance deliberate, respectful. When they reached the fork where the lodge roof came back into view, Ethan slowed. This stays here, he said, gesturing back toward the sound of the falls. It was not a question. Lily met his gaze and nodded once. Yes, she said, and meant it. The rest of the afternoon unfolded like a test of composure. Meetings resumed. Agendas advanced. Lily returned to her seat just outside the main conference room, tablet open, posture flawless. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. She was acutely aware of Ethan's presence now, of the way his voice carried when he addressed the leadership team, of the pauses he took, the moments he listened instead of speaking. Once, he glanced toward her as if to confirm a detail, and their eyes met for half a second longer than necessary. Lily looked down first, heart steady but alert. That evening, as the retreat shifted into a casual dinner by the fire pits, Lily considered excusing herself. She could say she had emails to send, flights to confirm. She was very good at disappearing behind responsibility. But something kept her there, seated at the edge of the circle, hands wrapped around a mug she barely sipped. Ethan arrived late, jacket slung over one shoulder, conversation quieting almost imperceptibly as he took a seat across from her. The fire crackled. Someone laughed. Stories flowed around them, harmless, easy. Lily listened more than she spoke. At one point, Ethan addressed the group, thanking them for the day, for their work, for their trust. His words were measured, sincere. When the applause faded, he added, "None of this works without the people who keep us grounded." His eyes found Lily, briefly, publicly, without explanation. No one else noticed. Lily felt the weight of it. Anyway, later, as the night cooled and people drifted away, Ethan stood. "Ms. Harper," he said, formal again, a shield she recognized. "May I walk you back to the lodge?" She hesitated only a second. "Yes," she answered. The path was lit by low lanterns, the air crisp. They walked in silence until Ethan spoke. "What you saw today," he said carefully, "was not a mistake." Lily stopped. He stopped too, turning to face her fully. "It was a reminder," he continued, "that people are more than their roles." Lily held his gaze, the firelight from behind casting soft shadows across his face. "I agree," she said, "and reminders can be powerful." He nodded, accepting the boundary in her words, the promise within them. They resumed walking, the lodge doors ahead, the waterfall behind, and the understanding between them newly formed, delicate, and impossible to ignore. Lily slept poorly that night, not because of the altitude or the unfamiliar bed, but because her mind refused to return to its usual order. She replayed moments she would normally file away and forget, the sound of water in the distance, the way Ethan Caldwell had stepped back instead of forward, the restraint in his voice when he said some things were better left untouched. By morning, she was already dressed, seated at the small desk by the window, reviewing the day's schedule as if nothing had shifted. Control came easily when she focused on tasks. Breakfast was brief. Final sessions wrapped early. By noon, the retreat began to dissolve into departures and handshakes. Lily moved through it all with her usual quiet efficiency, arranging transportation, confirming flight times, handing out printed itineraries. Ethan thanked her with a nod, professional, distant. If anyone watched closely, they might have missed the slight hesitation in his step when he passed her. Back in New York, the city welcomed her with familiar noise and sharp edges. The office tower rose as it always had, glass and steel against the sky. Lily returned to her desk, placed her tote beneath it, aligned her pens. The routine steadied her. Emails flooded in. Meetings stacked. Ethan's calendar filled faster than she could clear it. For a week, nothing happened. No late nights. No lingering looks. Lily convinced herself that the mountain had been an exception, a moment that belonged to thin air and distance from reality. Then came Thursday. Ethan requested a meeting, brief, just 15 minutes, scheduled at the end of the day. Lily prepared the folder, reviewed the talking points, and knocked precisely on time. His office was quiet, the city stretching behind him in soft evening light. "Have a seat," he said. She did. He did not begin immediately. Instead, he closed the folder she had prepared without opening it. "This is not about work," he said. Lily's back straightened. "I understand," she replied, though she did not. Ethan met her eyes. "I want to be clear," he continued, measured, deliberate. "What happened at the retreat did not change my expectations of you as my executive secretary. Your professionalism remains exactly what it has always been." Lily nodded. Relief flickered, followed by something else she did not name. "However," Ethan added, "it changed how I see myself." That caught her off guard. He stood, moving toward the window, hands clasped behind his back. "I built this company by separating what I feel from what I decide," he said. "That has served me well, but it has also narrowed my vision." He turned back to her. "You reminded me that clarity does not require distance." Lily considered her response carefully. "With respect," she said, "I did not set out to remind you of anything." A corner of his mouth lifted, brief, restrained. "I know," he said. Silence followed, not uncomfortable, but full. Finally, Ethan spoke again. "I will be stepping back from day-to-day operations for the next quarter. The board approved it this morning." Lily blinked. "I was not aware," she said. "You were not meant to be," he replied. "But I will need someone I trust to ensure continuity. That is you." Her pulse steadied. This, she understood. Responsibility. Purpose. "I accept," she said simply. He nodded, decision sealed. As she rose to leave, Ethan spoke one last time. "For what it is worth," he said, "thank you for being exactly who you are." Lily paused at the door. She did not smile. She did not deflect. "You are welcome," she said. And as she stepped back into the hallway, she realized something quietly profound had shifted, not in the way he looked at her, but in the way she allowed herself to be seen. Lily's new responsibilities settled in quietly, not with ceremony, but with accumulation, early mornings that stretched into evenings, decisions that once passed across Ethan's desk, now pausing briefly at hers before moving forward. The quarter Ethan stepped back was not an absence, so much as a presence felt differently, his name still carrying weight in meetings, his standards embedded in every process, but his physical distance creating a space Lily had never occupied before. She filled it carefully. People noticed. Department heads began coming to her first, trusting her judgment, accepting her calm authority. She never overstepped. She never softened her tone to be liked. She simply delivered clarity. Late one night, long after most of the floor had gone dark, Lily stood by the conference room window, looking out over the city lights, reflecting on how easily she had slipped into this expanded role. She wondered if Ethan had known she would. The thought unsettled her more than the workload. 2 weeks into the transition, Ethan returned unexpectedly for a board briefing. Lily knew before he arrived. She always did. The rhythm of the office shifted, conversations tightening, posture straightening. When he stepped out of the elevator, composed as ever, their eyes met briefly across the lobby. There was recognition there, not of a private moment, but of shared momentum. The briefing went smoothly. Lily sat along the wall, notes ready, listening as Ethan addressed the board with his usual precision. When questions arose about operational continuity, he deferred to her without hesitation. "Ms. Harper has overseen the transition," he said. "If you have concerns, direct them to her." Lily answered each question with measured confidence. No one challenged her. Afterward, as the board members filtered out, Ethan lingered. "Walk with me," he said quietly. They moved down the corridor side by side, footsteps echoing softly. "You have done well," he said, not as praise, but as acknowledgement. "Thank you," Lily replied. "It is the work." He glanced at her. "It is also you." They stopped near the break room, an unremarkable space that felt oddly charged in the quiet building. "I will not blur lines," Ethan said, direct, unambiguous. "What I am considering requires time and consent." Lily met his gaze, understanding the weight of his words. "I will not be an exception," she said. "Nor should you be." A pause. Then Ethan nodded. "Good," he said. "Then we are aligned." Days passed. Then weeks. The city warmed into spring. Lily found herself no longer flinching when Ethan's name appeared on her phone, no longer overanalyzing his presence. They worked. They respected. And slowly, something steadier formed beneath it all, not urgency, Not tension, but trust. One evening, as Lily prepared to leave, Ethan appeared at her desk. "I am heading out," he said. "There is a small gallery opening on 23rd Street. No obligations. No press." She hesitated. Not because she wanted to say no, but because she wanted to be sure of her yes. "I would like that," she said finally. He smiled, subtle, genuine. As they stepped into the elevator together, Lily realized the line she once guarded so fiercely had not disappeared. It had shifted, and this time, she was stepping across it with her eyes open. Lily arrived at the gallery just after sunset, the street glowing with warm light reflected off brick and glass, the city quieter here than it ever was near the office. The space itself was small, intimate, white walls lined with paintings that invited stillness rather than attention. Ethan greeted the curator by name, then stepped back, allowing Lily to move at her own pace. She appreciated that immediately. They walked slowly, stopping when something caught their eye, sharing observations without trying to impress each other. Lily spoke about composition and restraint, about how negative space allowed the viewer to breathe. Ethan listened, genuinely, as if learning something new rather than confirming what he already believed. At one piece, a landscape softened by light, Lily paused longer than the rest. "It reminds me of somewhere," she said quietly. "Not a place exactly. More like a feeling." Ethan nodded. "That is usually where the truth is," he replied. When they stepped back outside, the night air was cool, carrying the faint sound of traffic. They did not rush. They walked toward a nearby cafe, unplanned, choosing a corner table by the window. Conversation flowed easily now, not about work, but about moments that shaped them, small decisions that redirected entire lives. Lily spoke about leaving her hometown with a single suitcase, about learning that independence was not the same as isolation. Ethan spoke about building success early and mistaking control for certainty. There was no urgency in their words, only understanding. Over the next weeks, these moments repeated, dinners without spectacle, walks through neighborhoods Lily loved but had never shared, afternoons where Ethan joined her for coffee. Between meetings without announcement. At the office, nothing changed. Boundaries remained intact. Respect held firm. But outside of it, something deepened, quiet and deliberate. One evening, after a long day, Lily received a message from Ethan asking if she would meet him at the edge of Central Park. She arrived to find him standing near the path, hands in his coat pockets, watching the city lights through the trees. "I needed air," he said simply. They walked without direction, leaves crunching softly beneath their steps. "There is something I should say," Ethan continued, stopping near a small bridge. "Not because I expect an answer, but because honesty matters." Lily turned to face him. "I am listening," she said. He took a breath. "I am not interested in a version of you shaped by my expectations," he said. "If we continue, it must be because you choose it freely." Lily considered him, the man who had seen her at her most unguarded and never tried to claim that moment. "I am choosing," she replied. He did not reach for her. Instead, he smiled, relief softening his expression. Spring gave way to summer. The city warmed. One weekend, Lily suggested a drive north. No destination, just space. They stopped when the road narrowed, drawn by the sound of water. The path felt familiar, winding, quiet. When the waterfall came into view, Lily slowed. She stepped closer, the mist cool against her face, the memory clear but no longer fragile. Ethan stood beside her now, not behind, not watching from a distance. She turned to him, calm, present. "This time," she said, "I know I am not alone." Ethan met her gaze. "Neither am I," he replied. They stood together as the water fell steadily, not as employer and secretary, not as roles defined by structure, but as two people who had learned that being seen was not a risk, but a gift freely given. Lily noticed the change before anyone said a word. It arrived as a tightening in the air, a subtle recalibration of attention when she entered a room, conversations pausing a beat too long before resuming. At first, she dismissed it as end-of-quarter pressure, the usual tension that came with performance reviews and forecasts. But then an email circulated, polite on the surface, requesting clarification on reporting lines and conflict of interest policies. Lily read it twice, steadying her breath. She had anticipated this moment. She just had not expected it to feel so heavy. Ethan did not call her immediately. That restraint mattered. When he did ask to meet, It was scheduled through the same system as every other request, no urgency flagged. In the conference room, the blinds half drawn, he spoke first. "The board has questions," he said. Lily nodded. "They should," she replied. "Transparency matters." Ethan watched her carefully. "They are concerned about perception," he continued. "Not about misconduct." Lily met his gaze. "Perception can still cost people their credibility," she said evenly. "Including mine." Silence followed, measured, respectful. "I will not protect myself at your expense," Ethan said finally. "Nor will I ask you to minimize what you have earned." Lily considered that. "Then we address it directly," she said. "Together, but appropriately." The following week, Lily presented her operational report to the board, clear metrics, documented decisions, timelines that spoke for themselves. She did not reference Ethan beyond what the record required. When questions arose about her authority, she answered calmly, without defensiveness. Ethan remained silent throughout, hands folded, allowing her work to stand alone. When the session ended, the board chair nodded once. "Ms. Harper," she said, "your performance speaks clearly." Relief did not wash over Lily. Pride did. Later that evening, Lily returned to her apartment, setting her keys down more slowly than usual. She stood by the window, city lights flickering on, and acknowledged the truth she had been holding at a careful distance. Choosing visibility meant accepting scrutiny. Choosing honesty meant accepting risk. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan, simple. "Thank you for today." She replied just as simply. It was necessary. They met that weekend at the riverfront, a public place, open and unremarkable. They walked without touching, not because they could not, but because they did not need to. "This may not get easier," Ethan said. Lily smiled faintly. "Most worthwhile things do not," she replied. He stopped, turning to face her. "If you decide this costs too much," he said, "I will understand." Lily did not hesitate. "I decide," she said, "what costs me, and what gives me more than it takes." Summer deepened. The city moved forward. Lily continued her work, now with a confidence that did not ask permission. Ethan returned fully, his leadership quieter, more deliberate. They did not announce anything. They did not hide either. And one evening, as they crossed a familiar bridge at dusk, Ethan reached for Lily's hand, not as a declaration, but as an offering. She took it, steady and certain, understanding that what they were building did not depend on secrecy or spectacle, but on the quiet strength of choosing each other openly, again and again. Lily did not expect the invitation to arrive the way it did, slipped into her calendar without commentary, labeled simply as an external engagement, attendance optional. She recognized the venue immediately, a formal charity gala hosted by one of the company's long-standing partners, the kind of evening where optics mattered more than words. She considered declining, not because she was afraid, but because she understood what presence implied. Ethan called her that evening, not to persuade, but to inform. "I will be there," he said. "I wanted you to hear that from me." Lily appreciated the honesty. "Then I will attend," she replied. "On my terms." The night of the gala arrived with late summer heat lingering in the air. Lily stepped into the venue composed, her posture calm, her expression neutral. She wore nothing extravagant, nothing that demanded attention, only confidence that did not need approval. The room shifted when Ethan entered, conversations softening, heads turning. He crossed the floor without hesitation and stopped beside her, not touching, but clearly aligned. Eyes followed them. Whispers moved faster than music. Lily felt it, the familiar pressure of being evaluated, and let it pass through her without resistance. They spoke with donors, partners, colleagues. Lily answered questions about projects and outcomes, her voice steady. Ethan deferred to her openly when appropriate, reinforcing her authority without fanfare. Then it happened. A senior executive from a rival firm, glass in hand, smiled too sharply and said, "It is impressive how quickly some people advance when timing favors them." The room quieted just enough. Lily met his gaze. "Timing favors preparation," she replied evenly. "Results favor accountability." Ethan did not intervene. He did not need to. The executive laughed awkwardly and moved on. Later, during the closing remarks, Ethan took the stage. He spoke about leadership, about trust, about the responsibility that came with influence. Near the end, he paused. "I want to recognize the people whose work often goes unseen," he said. Those who carry weight without seeking credit. His eyes found Lily. Ms. Harper, he continued, is one of those people. Applause followed, genuine, sustained. Lily held his gaze, acknowledging the moment without absorbing it. Afterward, they stepped outside onto the terrace, the city stretching below. The noise of the room faded behind them. You did not have to do that, Lily said. I know, Ethan replied. But I chose to. She considered him, the man who once guarded distance as a shield and now understood presence as a responsibility. This is what alignment looks like, she said. He nodded. And it is not always comfortable. They stood together, the weight of the evening settling into clarity rather than doubt. On the drive home, Lily watched the city pass, reflections blurring against the glass. She realized the challenge they faced was not opposition, but expectation. People would always try to define them by proximity, by assumption, by convenience. What mattered was how they responded. Ethan parked near her building and turned to her. There will be more nights like this, he said. Moments where silence would be easier. Lily smiled, calm, assured. I did not choose easy, she replied. I chose honest. He reached for her hand then, not hidden, not cautious. She took it, feeling the certainty settle between them. Whatever came next would not be about proving anything to anyone else. It would be about standing where they were meant to stand, together, without apology. Lily felt the quiet before the decision long before the decision itself arrived. It lived in the space between meetings, in the way people now looked to her not for reassurance, but for direction, in the confidence she carried without effort. The board vote was scheduled for early fall, a formal confirmation of her expanded role, no longer transitional, no longer temporary. She prepared the materials with the same precision she always had, but this time the work felt personal, not because of ambition, but because it reflected who she had become. Ethan did not involve himself in the preparation. That mattered more than he knew. The night before the vote, Lily could not sleep. She walked through her apartment, pausing by the window, the city steady below. Her phone buzzed. Ethan did not call. He sent a single message. No matter the outcome, I am proud of you. She read it twice, then set the phone down, breathing evenly. The meeting room was filled when she entered the next morning. Faces familiar, expressions attentive. Lily presented without hesitation, her voice clear, her vision grounded in data and integrity. Questions came. She answered them. When the room cleared, she waited alone, hands folded, gaze steady. When the board chair returned, her smile was small but genuine. Ms. Harper, she said, the position is yours. Lily nodded, accepting without flourish. That evening, Ethan met her at the same gallery where they had first spoken beyond roles. The walls held a new exhibition, light and shadow balanced carefully. He did not speak immediately. He simply took her hand. You chose yourself, he said quietly. I always have, Lily replied. They walked through the space, past a piece that mirrored falling water in layered strokes. Lily stopped. Do you remember the first time you saw me without context? She asked. Ethan smiled. I remember realizing I had been looking at the wrong things. Outside, the night was cool, the street calm. Ethan stopped beneath a tree strung with soft lights. There is something I have carried for months, he said. Not as an impulse, but as intention. Lily watched him closely, her expression open. Say it, she said. He reached into his pocket, not with ceremony, but with certainty, and held out a simple ring. I want to choose you, he said. Publicly. Fully. With nothing hidden. Lily did not rush. She considered the moment, the work, the scrutiny, the partnership built on respect rather than secrecy. Then she nodded once. Yes, she said. The city did not erupt. The world did not pause. But something settled into place with quiet finality. Weeks later, they returned to the place where it had begun, the path winding toward the waterfall familiar now. Lily stepped forward, not hesitant, not searching. Ethan stood beside her. She removed her blazer and set it on the same rock, a deliberate echo, then turned to him. This was where I thought I was alone, she said. Ethan met her gaze. And where you taught me that seeing is a responsibility, he replied. The water fell steadily, unchanged, as Lily reached for his hand. She had stepped out once believing no one was watching. Now, she stood fully seen, fully chosen, and entirely herself. Lily chose a small ceremony, not because she wanted to hide, but because she wanted every face to matter. The morning arrived clear and bright, the air crisp enough to feel awake. Friends gathered quietly, a handful of colleagues who had become allies, family who understood that success did not replace connection but could deepen it when honored properly. Ethan stood beside her beneath a simple arch of greenery, his presence calm, grounded, no longer defined by titles or headlines. When Lily walked toward him, she did so without nerves, without doubt, aware of how far she had come from the woman who once measured herself by how invisible she could be. The vows were spoken plainly, promises shaped by choice rather than spectacle. Ethan spoke of partnership, of listening, of the courage it took to see another person fully and remain open. Lily spoke of trust, of autonomy, of standing beside someone without losing herself. When they exchanged rings, there was no applause at first, only a shared breath, a moment that belonged entirely to them. Later, as the gathering moved into gentle celebration, Lily stepped aside, looking out toward the trees, the sound of water faint in the distance. Ethan joined her, slipping his hand into hers with familiar ease. "Do you ever think about that first day?" he asked. Lily smiled. "Often," she replied. "It reminds me that being seen can be the beginning of something, not the end of safety." Life continued, as it always does. Lily returned to the office, now with a title that reflected her authority, though she carried it lightly. She mentored others quietly, making room where she once had to carve space herself. Ethan led with intention, less concerned with appearance and more committed to impact. Together, they navigated public moments and private ones with the same clarity that had brought them here. On a quiet weekend, they returned once more to the waterfall, the path worn familiar by memory. Lily stepped forward, the mist cool against her skin, and laughed softly. "I thought I was alone," she said. Ethan smiled. "You were," he replied. "And you were enough." She turned to him, understanding settling into her chest. Love, she realized, was not about being found, but about choosing to remain present once you were. They stood there as the water fell steadily, unchanged, a reminder that some forces move forward regardless of who is watching. Lily had stepped into her life believing solitude was safety. She now knew that connection, when chosen freely and honored openly, could be just as strong. And as they walked back together, hand in hand, there was no need for distance, no fear of being seen, only the quiet certainty of two lives aligned by respect, integrity, and a moment that taught them both how to truly look.